In any Souls-like game, one of the first things you're going to want to do is find a weapon with a moveset or unique effect that resonates with you. This is true with No Rest for the Wicked. In a game with so many different weapons and combat stat spreads, it takes some time to find the right weapon for you. After playing this game's early access for over 100 hours since its release and trying out several different builds, I thought it would be fun to highlight a few of those builds and weapon combos before the new patch, and then we can revisit this later and see if there are any changes. As a disclaimer, I did not test every stat spread out there at an endgame level, but I did manage to test a large number of weapons out there to get a feel for their moveset and rune attack combos. With that out of the way, let's get started with our number 3 on this list. This first build is one of my favorites that is a strength and intelligence mix, and it utilizes the two-handed greatsword called the Shattered Sun. The Shattered Sun is my favorite weapon in the game. It has really cool attack animations. Overall, it has a 5-hit attack combo, with the final strike being this really cool leap attack. The built-in rune attack is Whirlwind, which is extremely strong, especially against staggered enemies when they're knocked down and can't really get out of your whirlwind effect. So basically that means this weapon synergizes extremely well with stagger. So if you want to throw on something in addition to help build up that stagger, you can add throw weapon rune attacks to this, and it synergizes incredibly well. As far as elemental damage, I was using fire because that's just kind of the best Shattered Sun weapon passive effects that I ended up getting, so I ended up running with Fire Elemental. But if I could choose again, I would go with Lightning Elemental because lightning helps you build stagger quicker, and as I mentioned, this weapon really gets a lot of mileage out of staggers. As far as downsides go for this weapon, really it's just that it requires a lot of stamina investment to get all 5 basic attack combos accessible to you. And even when you have all 5 attacks, you rarely ever actually get the full 5-hit combo off because you're likely going to have to dodge somewhere in that combo, and that's going to interrupt your combo chain. So really, even though this weapon has really cool animations, you're just never going to see them in actual combat scenarios. Coming in at my second favorite build is one that I actually started off disliking quite a bit. This build is a pure strength build that utilizes the Spalled Axe, which is a weapon that you can craft very early on into the game, so it's very accessible. Now, the reason I didn't like this build at first is because battle axes are my favorite weapon type in all games, so when I tried out this weapon, it felt way too heavy for what I expected an axe to kind of feel like, I suppose. But I really just wanted to work a battle axe out into a build that was functional, so I kind of just stuck with it. And eventually I realized that this weapon builds up a ton of stagger, even though it has really slow, heavy hits. The innate rune that's built into the Spalled Axe is really cheap. It only has 50 focus. And then you can also combo that off into another rune attack for some pretty decent burst damage. I think it looks really cool too if you use the Plague Crash into something like Downward Slam, or I think it's a Dodging Slam, something like that. Sorry, I forget what the actual rune attacks are called for some of these weapons. But for a heavy weapon such as this, being able to just kind of swing it around with your rune attacks looks and feels really good. Now, that being said, I would say the downside of this weapon is actually that because of how slow the attacks are, focus generation can be a bit of a hassle, so you probably want to build in some passive focus regeneration, but that's not necessarily a requirement. Now, before we get to my number 1 favorite build, I wanted to cover a few honorable mentions here that the weapons were really fun to play around with, but just didn't quite fit my preferred playstyle, I suppose. The first one here is another strength and intelligence mixed build that utilizes the short Bardiche. This is a crafted weapon that you can begin crafting in World Tier 3, so it's a little bit later in the story progression. This weapon comes with a Frost rune attack built in, so as you might imagine, this weapon is going to synergize pretty well with Frost damage. So if you add some Frost Elemental damage to it, it's going to freeze enemies, and that means you're going to be able to attack them more freely and build up more focus and just kind of keep that cycle rolling. The attacks are also pretty quick for this weapon for it being a two-hander. That means you can synergize it with something like Blink, where you can play a bit of a hit and run build and get some pretty chunky damage in there while also being pretty nimble. Or you can always forego using the extra mobility and get some extra damage instead. One of my favorites is to use double crush because I just think this rune attack is really cool. And really the only reason this isn't in my top 3 favorites is because it's just another strength and intelligence build, and I already have the Shattered Sun up there, so I didn't want to have 2/3 of my list be from the same stat spread, I suppose. But this is a very good weapon. I would highly recommend it. The second honorable mention is a mage build that utilizes the Fallen Sky unique weapon, which can be crafted later in World Tier 3, I believe. The Fallen Sky is a frost-oriented staff with a few different frost rune attacks built in, alongside coming with Blink. This is a very strong weapon to freeze enemies from a distance, and then you can close the gap by blinking in and either melee attacking to generate focus, or you can just continue to blast enemies that are frozen with spells from a distance. The other cool thing about this weapon is that it basically provides you with infinite stamina, because whenever you use a rune attack while having empty stamina, it instantly refills your stamina. And because it comes with something like Blink, which is only 25 focus, it's basically the cheapest rune attack you can have access to. So that just essentially means that this weapon is incredibly nimble. The only reason I did not include this in my top 3 is because I didn't quite have a fully built out like pure intellect build. I never really was that invested in ranged or mage builds, so I kind of slept on this type of weapon for maybe too long, I suppose. I was actually trying to work on a mage character before the Breach launch, but I'm not sure if I'm going to quite get there in time. And for the final honorable mention is a Dex Faith build, which mixes using a bow with a one-handed rapier. The bow that is being used is called Patience, and the rapier is called the Moonshaft. The Moonshaft is pretty cool because it comes with some frost damage built into it, so it means that you can eventually build up the freeze effect on enemies. It also comes with a rune attack built in that gives you iframes. However, this attack doesn't do a ton of damage and is kind of expensive. It's 100 focus. So to supplement something like that, you can either run Blink or you can run additional focus damage by adding in something like the Twirl Dash rune attack. Twirl Dash is very good. The Moonshaft is primarily a utility weapon. It doesn't do a ton of damage, like I said, and that's where Patience comes in. The Patience bow, you can equip it with the Cone Shot rune attack. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful. This basically fires a shotgun spray of arrows, which does an incredible amount of damage when used up close. So the usual build and playstyle for this goes like you're poking them with Moonshaft. Eventually you build up the freeze effect, and once you build up that freeze effect, you're already going to be in melee range, so then you can just fire off a cone shot. Including a bow with this build also allows you to poke enemies from a distance. You can also include a frost arrow on the Patience bow, so that way you can build up frost element from a distance and kind of continue to build up that playstyle. So really the reason why this weapon combo is so good is because it's very versatile. You have options at a distance, and you have a lot of iframe options, and you even have some decent amount of crowd control. Really the only thing that this build lacks is some good consistent damage. It's mostly just coming in the form of burst damage instead through Cone Shot. So that's the reason why it's not included in the top 3. And now for my favorite weapon build to play. This is a pure faith build that utilizes the Spirit Edge, which is a one-handed sword. This weapon is pretty crazy because it has pure frost damage, which means you're going to build up the frost status effect very quickly, but it also has really fast attacks. In addition, it comes with a passive skill that, similar to the Moonshaft, it gives you iframes on your attack. But again, because this weapon does pure frost damage, when you use this rune attack, you're doing an insane amount of frost damage and frost buildup. So you can freeze enemies just with a single press of this button. But again, this button also comes with iframes, so you're extremely nimble, and it's also incredibly cheap in that it only costs you 50 focus. It's basically like one of the most well-rounded and versatile focus attacks. You have iframes, you have good damage, you have status effect buildup, It's so incredibly good. And then as a backup rune, you can opt for more damage, but I think adding a little bit more mobility to a weapon like this is really fun. I was kind of role playing almost like it was something more akin to like a bit of a battle mage, where I was like just jumping in and trying to like quickly assassinate enemies and then blink out. It was really fun to play. Being able to iframe through attacks that I kind of got myself into a sticky situation with is very good. And then if I just wanted to basically nope out from an enemy, I would just blink away. It was probably a little overkill if I'm being honest, but it was just so much fun. Blink in this game feels so good. So as you might expect though, because all of our damage is primarily coming from basic attacks, if you can get an enchantment that gives you stamina on damage dealt, you're going to be able to keep up your offense almost 100% of the time. Playing with this build, it really does look like you're just constantly attacking. Anytime an enemy tries to respond, you just use your evasive strike rune attack to dodge the attack, and then you just keep on melee attacking and dodging. And then if you need to get away and heal up for whatever reason, then you just blink out, heal, and then blink back in. This weapon has just the most absurd uptime. And then on top of that, if you include some passive focus regeneration into the build, you are building up your focus even if you have to back out and recover some health. And because your focus attacks are already so cheap, you can just jump right back in usually after you're done healing. And like I said, just oh my god, this weapon it's so fun. Like, I cannot wait to start over again and get this weapon and try to build it up from scratch. I will say that the main drawback is probably its damage. It's not gonna do the most damage, but I mean, if your goal is to look pretty cool while you're fighting and play like a nimble fighter, I highly recommend this weapon. It's gonna be great, I swear. So what kind of weapon and builds are you all planning on playing through your first playthrough of the Breach update? Let me know down in the comments below. If you found this type of content helpful or entertaining, or just want to help out the channel, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel for more No Rest for the Wicked content in the near future. This was GooberTroy, and as always, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.